Hello, welcome to our open house session. And well, we are going to see how many questions we can answer in 1 hour, right? The goal, the rule is if you can put your question on the chat box, that is going to be great. For any reason, if you cannot put your question on the chat box, feel free to raise your hand and then we're going to give you the chance to ask your question. Right. So the first 30 to 40 minutes, we just want to answer as many questions as possible. And remember, while we're answering the question, in Scrum, there is no one right way of saying it, right? We'll try to make it as much in a practical way as much as possible. Your biggest advantage to answer question rightly in a Scrum environment is to contextualize it, is to own it. So I want you to pay attention the way I address the questions, right? And the way I'm going to address the question, I'm going to use more of a personal base. So I'm assuming that I'm on an interview seat and assuming that you are the interviewer. So for every question I respond to, I'm going to respond to as if I was in an interview. Okay, now a couple of things why you're in an interview. The first thing, you want to make sure that your background is not distractive, right? If your background is distractive, you want to use a visual background. A visual background simply means that you want to ensure that your background is there. The most advisable to use if you don't have a blue screen is to use a blur background. And you can simply look at this by going down on your camera and then putting it up and having a blur background, right? You see everything in my background is blurred. But then if I don't want to use a blur background, my background is organized, so I can go ahead with it. Now, if you do that, the second technique for your interview is that you want to make sure that you're focusing on your camera. Now, if I start looking at everyone that is on my screen, I might start looking based on different direction. So your biggest goal, focus on your camera. Now, if we have these and we're good to go, perfect. Then, most important, the lighting is very important. If you don't have good lighting in the position where you are, you can always get a ring light. A ring light is going to cost you less than $50. It can always be in front of you, and that's going to give you a very good video. All right, so the first question for today is velocity a good proxy for productivity? Or is velocity a good proxy to measure productivity? Okay, that's a question asked to me in an interview. And my response is going to be, velocity helps us to understand how much work our team is completing. But we cannot rely on velocity alone to say a team is productive or not. Number one, velocity rely on how effective the team is estimating. So if the team is not estimating the work they are completing well, they may exaggerate their velocity. And you can get on a team and you see, oh, they completed 100 story point. But did they actually do the estimate? Do they understand estimation? And that is why velocity alone cannot tell us that the team is productive. Secondly, if we look at velocity, it can give us that, okay, the team is completing everything they put on the backlog. But we also need to look at the amount of rework. The work they completed, is it coming back because of technical debt? We also want to look at the amount of rework and bugs that we are having. If this issue, if a rework or technical debt or bug, we will have a growing issue of technical debt and bug, then it also an indication that although we are doing good in terms of velocity, we are not a performing team. So yes, it's a very good factor. If a team is estimating rightly and if technical debt is low, we can count on our velocity. So we're going to look at two of these aspects. Now, the second question says that, does your resume have to carry former project manager now? Now, Scrum Master, I see this a lot in resume. No, it does not have to carry former project manager. Although it gives you it gives you a good foundation, right? because understand Scrum is a shift from the project management way of delivering, which is called the traditional approach of delivering into Scrum, right? So if you have a project coordinator or a project background in your resume, it gives you a bigger advantage, but it does not have to be that way. The third question says, who are supplier in SAFe? What do they do? All right. This is a very open question. In reality, we don't have a specific terms as suppliers in SAFe. Maybe in some environment, they might use the word suppliers, but there is no standard terms as supplier if you're looking at the entire framework. So if I receive this question in an interview, I'm going to ask the interviewer to throw more light on what he means by supplier. Do you mean the stakeholder? Are we talking about business? Are we talking about at the program level? So based on what they mean as supplier, and we can understand what they do. But there's no specific role looking at throughout the entire SAFe framework as supplier. But because SAFe is flexible, Scrum is flexible, in some environment, they can give them different names. For instance, in some environment, the core Scrum Master, project delivery managers, right? In some environment, they call them what, they give different names to them because they don't want to use the name Scrum Master. All right, the next question says, how do you help the product owner prioritize the backlog to maximize value for the stakeholder while keeping the development team engaged and motivated? Thank you very much for that question. Now, the product owner is the person who collects the requirement from the stakeholder. The way I've been able to help my product owner is I always schedule a 30-minute meetup weekly with my product owner. And what we try to do is just to look at how we support each other. Asking if he's having trouble with a stakeholder, if I can be of help in any way, and trying to understand what are the priorities for the next couple of sprints. In that way, I can be able to give an idea, if needed, on how to prioritize them. And at the same time, the reason I also meet with my product owner weekly is also to get updates that help my team to stay prepared. For instance, if based on the feedback from my meeting with my product owner, he says that the next couple of requirements are very volatile and they're likely to change. It means that working with my team, I'm going to put a bit more of buffer because we are expecting changes that will come in the subsequent sprint. So we need to give more room in order to accommodate if these changes are coming in the middle of the sprint. All right. So the next question says that, what is the role of a business analyst in a Scrum environment? All right, so in reality, a business analyst doesn't have a specific role in a Scrum environment. If you look at the Scrum framework, you want to go. But then depending on the environment where Scrum is being used, we can customize the business analyst role in that project. In that way, some of the business analysts try to evaluate the business case for any story that needs to be completed. Let's say that you are working in a company and they do marketing or they do advertisement for other company. Now, when a requirement comes into the product backlog, the business analyst will need to go through and analyze the business case and see if it's going to benefit both the company and the client, and then advise if we should move ahead with it or not. Now, if I want to go a bit into the analytical concept of a business analyst, in a SAFe environment, this happens when we receive a feature that need to go into the program backlog. Now, we need to analyze to see if we can accept this feature or not based on the business value it need to deliver. So in most of the cases, you are going to only have business analysts in your team, if we are working on story that we need to understand how to prioritize the business value based on the benefit from the customer and the benefit from the client, the customer, and all the stakeholder within the environment. The next question says that, how do you stay up to date on latest trends and best practices in Scrum Agile methodology? And how do you incorporate this knowledge into your work as a Scrum Master? Now, the first thing I will go by this is like I'm part of a community of practice that that brings together more than 100 Scrum Master, and we meet weekly just to share ideas on what is happening on different environments and to learn from each other. And the second thing is I also do a lot of reading. And one of the books I've read about Scrum is Escape Velocity. You can also look at the different books in Agile Project Management. A lot of books I recommend for my team members. Escape Velocity is Free Your Company Future from the Pool of the Past. Now, Escape Velocity is a very good Scrum book, but then focus on how you can help your company focus on the work that they are doing. Other books which I'm going to recommend for Scrum Masters, especially those who give me a second, especially those who don't so much understand Scrum. I think I've recommended that book earlier on in this forum. We want to look at this book, Inspired, How to Create Tech Product Customer Love. This book gives you a whole detail on all the different concepts your developers are going to be using. And it also helps you kind of demystify some of the terms that your product owners are going to be using. It talks about what makes a good project. It talks about product teams. It gives you also ideas on the transformation techniques. It gives you pilot team techniques. It gives you quantitative value testing, qualitative value testing, feasibility testing. So it helps to understand every bit of component of what your team is doing. So it's a book I'll definitely really invest my money in it for everyone that want to learn. So for everyone, you need to have at least one Scrum book you've read. That's what they're looking for. And also, you can follow at least one podcast, right? I started a newsletter on LinkedIn, which is called the Say Scrum ChatRoom. And I'm developing a newsletter every week, which is giving news trend on Scrum. So you can also follow a newsletter and say, oh, I follow this newsletter. And every week, there's a lot of sharing on this. You can follow a podcast, right? You can also say you listen to a lot of YouTube videos, but YouTube videos are definitely not a really formal way of learning, right? It only adds value to what you already know. Okay, so someone says that what is agile economics? We just never come across this question, but if I look at a question like this, I'm assuming they're talking about the benefit of agile. Because when you look at economics, it terms economics. Economic gives you what? More of the business value, more of the pro and the cons of you. So that's why sometimes I say that for some certain questions, you don't have to be technical. Just answer them the way you see them, right? So if someone asks me agile economics, definitely my disclaimer is agile economics. I'm not so familiar with that term. I haven't used it in enough of my environment, but if I understand you, we're talking more about the benefit of agile, the pro and the cons of agile. And if we're looking at that pro and cons of agile, we're looking at how is agile helping company produce more. And that is going to be on focus. One of the key goals for agile is the value of focus. It helps company focus on what is important at the moment, right? And that's why we continuously do prioritization. We continue look at feedback, the focus on the customer, the focus on the business value, and they're able to satisfy it. Now, one of the cons of Agile is the fact that it's expensive to implement. You need to have the right system. You need to hire the right people. And also because Agile is an open framework, many people tend to kind of have some misconception around that. So that my analysis around that question. The next question says, you are employed into an organization which run multiple sprints simultaneously. As a Scrum Master, how will you fix that? All right. And we assuming it's a single team running sprint simultaneously, right? Because if there are different teams running sprints simultaneously, that might not be a problem. But we want to say that maybe a team has started a sprint, they have not completed, they started another sprint, they have not completed, they started another sprint. So you have so many sprints that are open. I've actually seen a case like that. Now, if all of these sprints are addressed simultaneously, number one, it's an indicator that there is no alignment to the different project or features that they are implementing. So in that way, they don't know which one to start first and which one to complete. So the first thing I'm going to do is that I want to look at the product roadmap and I want to look at the release planning. And that helped me to understand what is a priority for the team. And then how can we arrange this priority in terms to help the team refocus on delivering value? So that's going to be my first point. So why I'm doing that, I also want to talk to the different team members who have been working with a team to understand why has this been a problem and why they have not been able to fix this problem. The next question says, how have you handled a team performance when it's not meeting commitment or velocity is volatile? All right, the first point is it's not meeting performance. What I have done to increase the performance of my team, I've mainly focused on three key areas. The first, enhanced communication. If my team is communicating effectively, then I'm sure we can solve any problem because lack of communication is the foundation of many conflicts that comes up, right? We are assuming. Secondly, I focus on collaboration. Are they having the right collaboration when it comes to, and the way I check collaboration for my team, I look at how conversation goes around meeting. If I see a lot of feedback conversation, I see that, oh, there's minimum collaboration. If I see a lot of constructive communication, it's an indication to me that there is collaboration. And the third thing which I do to actually ensure that my team is moving towards performance is to ensure that everyone is participating in the backlog refinement and sprint planning meeting, and that they are using the right technique or approach to estimate their work. So if there's collaboration, there's communication, and there's right estimation of work, then this is going to lead to performance. Now, in the case where velocity is volatile, number one, there might be a lot of changes in requirement. I was having a conversation with someone today, and at the middle of every sprint, management can just come and say, okay, look, can you refocus on this because a client needs us to deliver this next week? And then when I spoke with them, is because they work directly from epics. Now, epics are pieces of work that can take up to 6 months, 1 year to deliver. So they were supposed to break down the epic since they have more of tasks. They might not have futures. So in a case where you don't have futures, you build components. Epics can be divided into different components. This component of marketing, this is component on sales, this is component, and then from the component, we can have different tasks. So when we have that, I will also get management engaged in the release planning process. so that management can be able to give us more information on how volatile the future work we are expecting. We can easily work with our team to look at how to address that. The next question says, what is the relationship between value stream and agile release train? Now, an agile release train implements a value stream. A value stream simply talk about the end-to-end value of a product. For instance, if we're producing a hair product, now one value stream might be shampoo, another value stream might be hair oil, another value stream might be, let's say, a hair conditioner. Now, these are different end-to-end products that need to be handled independently. So the portfolio might be what? Hair product. In the portfolio, we have different value streams. Hair conditioner, shampoo, then hair oil. Now, an agile release train is a team of teams that is ensuring that all the line for hair conditioner is being produced effectively from end to end, right? We cannot mix hair conditioner with, let's say, shampoo. They have those are two different lines, which need to be handled with different approach of production. So a value stream and an agile release train is purely a safe environment question. So an agile release train implement a value stream in a safe environment. Is it advisable to apply for opportunity that requires some security clearance, or should we? Yes, if you're qualifying for security clearance, go ahead and apply. It's not a limitation. If they say that it requires security clearance, you can apply. Now, for you to be able to be approved for security clearance, I don't know the minimum requirement, but if you meet the requirement, we have team members who have gotten jobs and the company have actually done security clearance for them. So yes, you can do that. Can you explain in detail what value stream mapping is all about? All right. Now, value stream mapping, I just gave an example of we having a portfolio, and that portfolio produces hair oil, right? All right, let me use a more tech example. Let's say that we are working on a portfolio in Chase Bank, and that portfolio is to deliver effective payment approach to customers, right? Customers using the bank card, they can pay through different options while they're checking out in a location like Walmart. Now, you could decide to check out without a PIN using a credit card option, right? That's an end-to-end value stream. You can decide to check out using, let's say that you're using paper and your paper is linked to your account. So a value stream simply pick up a line of business and look at what is the step to step, or what is the step-by-step process we are going to start to the end to enable the client to have this value out of the product. So value stream, they are delivering a value. Let's use another scenario. Let's look at the Apple company. They may have a value stream that is only responsible for issuing licenses, right? Warranties and all of that for the different products. They may have another value stream responsible only for updating the software. They may have another value stream responsible for producing iPad. They may have another for producing MacBook. They may have another for producing MacBook Air, right? Those are different portfolio. Now, the reason these are different value stream, the reason they are arranged in value stream, for instance, it's at one point in time, like during COVID, people are not buying many laptops. They can reinvest more of their money on enhancing warranty and get people to buy more warranty during that product. So they know exactly which of their product is giving them more value and how they can invest their budget in there. So that's the concept of value stream. And value stream mapping simply means that what are the different phases we need to go through in order to ensure that this product is delivered effectively. For instance, when we're looking at that product, we need to look at who are the right teams we need at the level of program, who are the right team we need at the level of engineering, what is the right structure that we need in order to deliver this, right? So looking at everything included. Okay. How is essential save different from portfolio save? Okay, so save has 3 layers, right? The essential layer is program and team level. It's called the essential layer. Now you have the solution layer and then the portfolio layer. The portfolio layer is the higher layer that includes executive and where we call them business leaders, right? Now the solution layer include more of strategies like program managers. And then when we come to product managers and then scrum masters and product owner, they are the essential layers. So we have the essential layer. The essential layer is where the PI operate. PI is between team and program level, right? And then we move up to the solution, and then we move up to the portfolio. So the portfolio are the one that makes the decision, and then push it down to solution, and solution now strategize and look at how many value streams are we supposed to deliver. Then the program level take it from there, plan together with the team level. So the planning that occur between the team and the program level in SAFE, both of them constitute the essential SAFE. How would you help your team develop the Agile mindset? Okay. The way I help my team develop the Agile mindset, number 1 is leading by example. Number 2, implement short workshop and how do we call it? Launch and learn session where they can come and share what they know, and then we do questions and answer, right? So if you organize just, first of all, by you being an example, taking out time to meet with team members one-on-one, helping them understand what Agile delivery is all about. You can also build protocols, short protocols on what is the definition of done, what is the definition of ready, and then you put that in your conference where new team members can always go there and assess it and see what is relevant for the team. What is the difference between customer and business owners? A customer simply is the person we are producing the product to. The business owner is the person who receives the business. Right. Let's look at Chase Bank. The business owners are going to be the directors, the program managers, and stuff. Now, the customer, looking at the case of mobile banking, the customers are the client who use mobile banking, right? Now, you can also have C2C, right, where the business owner can be, let's say, I work for CBRE, and we're building a product for Chase. So the customer will be Chase, while the business owner will be the company building the solution for Chase. How do you manage risks and dependency, especially when dealing with external vendors? All right. Now, in dealing with external vendor, one of the challenges in managing dependency is the fact that we don't have control over their environment. So one of the ways I have worked to manage dependency with external vendor is to create a common communication channel where we can stay up to date in exchanging messages on where they are at the level of dependency. In most of the cases, this common communication channel is going to be emails, where you can constantly put everyone in the loop. Copy your manager, ask your external vendor, who is the person directly in charge of this, so that you can put them in the mail. Your team member who's also working on this, you can put them in the mail. In most of the cases, you facilitate and let your team member who is expecting that dependency do the communication, so that they can easily communicate with the other team members directly, compared to you being the middleman. You want to facilitate and create that environment, right? Now, what you also want to do is to effectively document this dependency. If your company have Jira Align provides you the platform to document this. If your company uses Miro, we can also map this on the Miro bot. You can also just personally document this in your dependency space on Confluence, and make sure that prior to every Scrum event, you go through some of this dependency and have your team member give update on where they are with the dependency. Now, on the other part of the question, which is about risks. Risk simply means that anything that can hold us back, not from completing. The recommendation I give for everyone is that don't go into an interview and start to figure out what is a risk you have managed, what is a dependency you have managed. These are things you document your examples before you ever go into any interview. So when we're answering some of these questions and we're giving you examples and try to bring scenarios, you need to build your own. Don't just listen to them. Build your own scenario. As they're asking, what's the difference between, or how do you manage technical debt? Don't just answer it vaguely. Put a situation, if you want to implement that, to say, oh, for instance, we had a scenario like this based on your case study, and this is what happened, and this is what happened. That's what creates the difference between you and the other person that are responding. Everybody knows the theoretical part. All right. So the difference between technical debt, bugs, and defect, with example. Okay, so when we're talking about technical debt, let's say that technical debt is deficient in quality. That's a simple definition of technical debt. Technical debt, I can say that, let's say we are building a solution that help the business to centralize data and to effectively manage circulation of data among patients, right? And we will need to build this system to accommodate at least 100 entry in 1 minute, right? But because we want to build the solution faster so that client can start using them, we start by giving the platform only the possibility to manage 20 clients per minute, right? Although this platform can perform the role, it's technical debt deficit. Because it doesn't meet the minimum requirement, which is 100. Remember, the goal was to meet 100 per minute. But because we want to deliver faster, we say, okay, let's make it 20 per minute. Now, the work that we have not done because we need to get it out faster is called technical debt, because we need to go back now after it get into the market to update that. Okay. On the other hand, technical debt also arises when team members, for instance, they are building a code, right? Let's say we want to build a payment gateway to allow client to pay by PayPal, right? Now, we build that code, it passed the testing phase, but we did not pay attention in regard to client who will be logging in from a public internet that is not secure. So in that case, when any client want to buy in a connection that is not secure, it will not allow them to buy. So It passed all the tests, all the code tests are going to pass. But then we realize that some certain kind of clients are not going to be able to use it. But in reality, in the real definition, it was meant to allow everyone buy it, right? So the company will send back this product to us, say this number of clients are having trouble buying from it. Now, that is not a bug. Now, it's because we did not build a solution that enable client with using open source internet to also use that form. So the team now will now go in and build a solution that allow client using open internet to buy. Now, a bug simply means that for a reason, a link stop working. For instance, you can go on a website and you click a link that's supposed to take you to a page to check out. But when you click, they say error. It's not working. That's a bug, right? There's something wrong somewhere. That's a bug. Now, when we talk about defect, defects are also similar to bug. Defect simply means that it's not working well. I can click a link that's supposed to take me to checkout. It takes me back to my cart. That's a defect. That's not a bug, right? Then if I click that link and it says error, it's not working. If I click it, it actually works, but it takes me to a different area. That is a defect. Yeah, but in most of the cases, you will not really have all of this clear line separation between defect and bug and all of that. But that's just a simple way to understand it. So based on that, I guess you can be able to look at examples based on what you might be working on. If you are shown a story at the end of the sprint, how do you articulate what went well, what did not go well? You cannot articulate. It's just like you have a to-do list. Your Jira board or other stories is a to-do list. You can only articulate when you have access to the developer environment and you start testing all the codes that they needed to build. That's why we have a tester. That's why we have a QA. But as a Scrum Master, you cannot articulate what went well or what did not go well. But then if this was an interview question, the way I'm going to respond to it, I will respond, thank you for that question. Definitely what I do to double check to see if a story is completed, I always make sure I do a double check prior to the day we're closing our sprint. I do a checklist. What was the unit code? Did it pass the unit code testing? Yes. Were all the acceptance criteria met and all of that? You don't have to do that because when you start doing that, it's micromanaging. It's not your role to do that. The product owner, the one accepting the story, double check all of that and accept. So you don't have to go double checking that. Right. So you only take measures if this story did not pass, it's continuously pulling back with the team, then you can leverage the retrospective to discuss this. Okay, what is your style? And now this is the type of questions that are also being asked to know if you work in a real environment. Those are some of the questions that they ask you just to see if you understand what it really means. Okay. What is your style of communication as a Scrum Master? Open communication, persuasive communication. Those are two styles of communication you can use as Scrum Master, asking powerful questions. How do you facilitate effective communication and collaboration between development team and the product owner, especially when the two parties have different priorities and perspective? If the two parties have different priorities and perspective, then they're not working as a team. So that's already showing you that communication is broken. Now, development team and product owner are not supposed to work in two different environments. So your role as a Scrum Master is to help both developers, product owners to know that we are all a team. And that is why I always encourage my product owner to be part of the daily stand-up at every time tea, so that they can have an understanding of what the team is doing and they can effectively support the team. Right. So if you were to answer this question, you say, oh, definitely I'm not really working in an environment with this discrepancy because I always make my team understand that we are a team and I facilitate communication that ensure that there's no brokerage. The developer don't need to pass information through me to the product owner. They can communicate. They know what to ask to the product owner. And we do this by ensuring that we have a working agreement that defines roles and responsibility for every team member. Can you please talk about essential quality an agile tester should possess? That question is out of your scope, but agile testers should know how to test stories. They should know how they should know, or they should understand the work and understand are the requirements and understand what are the different type of tests they need to perform in order to validate that a story is done or not. How do you ensure that the team has a clear definition of done for each backlog item? And how do you ensure that the team consistency meet the definition of done? Now, the definition of done is not for each backlog item. No, there is a definition of done is not attributed per story point. A definition of done is attributed per the product backlog. For a story to be considered that is done, it has to, first of all, move to the product backlog in progress. You have to go through QA, and then the product owner has to review it and accept it. When it goes through all these phases, we consider that is done. So definition of done is not something you just write and like, oh, definition of done simply means that maybe one thing should happen. No, it's a process. Whenever you see how your Scrum board is laid out, is in regard to the definition of done. If story don't require to go through QA or testing, you will not see a testing column in your Scrum board. So that's not part of our definition of done. Can you provide an example of how you apply Lean principle to Scrum framework to optimize delivery of value to the customer? Lean simply means that effective improvement. Lean is a word from Six Sigma, and Six Sigma focus on tiny improvement, optimizing, making sure that you're eliminating all bottlenecks. So if you were to give an example on how you apply the Lean the lean principle, what you can also do is you enforce communication in such a way that the development team can effectively ask questions to the PO without having to pass through anybody. You ensure that the team is cross-functional. If the team is cross-functional, I don't need to send an email to the testing team to ask a question about testing. They are there. So those are lean principles that are built in Scrum in order to ensure that there is effective delivery of value. All right, if recruiters ask about your salary rate, is it advisable to tell them what your rate is, or should you ask them what they should offer? Okay, I always say you need to know the standards in your area. What is the standard rate in your area? For those in California, for instance, you cannot start negotiating from $50 based on your expenses and all of that. You need to start negotiating from $70, $75 based on the rate. Now, for those in Ohio, you might have a lower rate because of the standard in that area. So every area has its rate. So when you know the standard rate, you tell them, okay, I'm looking at $70 an hour. What do you have? Now, if what they're offering is below $70 an hour, you simply ask them the question. So what will make you advise me to go for this role, even though it's offering less than what I'm expecting? So those are the negotiations that you can bring in. How do you respond with counter offer in case they are trying to offer you low? It's a no. There's no negotiation. Sorry, that doesn't meet my goal. If you see something that is at this level, reach back to me. So it's a straight no. They can force you to take what you don't want to take, except that you just want to do that for the sake of interviews. And now one thing is that sometimes we're so desperate to accept what is below our expectation. This is what happened. When you do that, you block yourself from other higher opportunities. Now, there are higher opportunities, just that you need to work more harder to get to those higher opportunities. So you can choose to accept $38, $35, or you can choose to work harder to meet up with $65 and $70. So the choice is yours. But then if it's a full-time, anything from $50 is still going to get you right up there, because they're going to pay you for your vacations. They're going to pay you for time off. So at the end of the day, you close the gap. Someone making $55 in a full-time position is much better than someone making 65 on W2. Trust me. There's a whole big different gap in that. All right. Can you describe a situation where you had to navigate a complex stakeholder environment, and how did you manage the completing priorities and expectation of various stakeholders while still delivering value? Okay, the way I answer this question is that, thank you very much. For me, I don't always look at complex stakeholder. I look at people with different ideas because of the values they hold. So what I do is I try to meet them where they are, not disagreeing with them, and understanding why they're thinking that way. And we find a common ground to start with. Let's say I have a stakeholder that says that, okay, look, you know what? We need to deliver more than 50 story point in a sprint. We're not doing our work. Right. That's a difficult environment. That's fine. And what I would do is, first of all, I'll try to give them an understanding like, oh, we can do that. That's not a problem. But this is what we can do in order to get to that point. If the two put you to say this is the case, we might accept that as a team. Then we build from that and document the gaps that happen and take it back to them. Stakeholder understand business value. They don't understand this cannot work. They understand result. So when you're able to prove by result, they're head down, they can sit down and reason with you. Okay. Can you describe 4 tier hierarchy of artifact that does functional system behavior? I don't know that question. It's complex question. Can you break that question down? Can you describe the 4 tier hierarchy of artifacts that describe functional system behavior? If we're talking about Scrum artifact, we're talking about the product backlog, we're talking about other different artifacts. If you're talking about Scrum artifact, but then if about the 4 tier hierarchy artifacts, rewrite that question in a different way. What strategy do you use to identify and manage risks and issues? And how do you ensure that your team is prepared to handle unexpected challenge? Now, conversations, there's no different strategy to identify and manage risks and issues. It's open communication. Right. Remember when your team we are evaluating during backlog refinement, we're evaluating a story. Now we can be able to ask our team, is there anything that can hold us back or can stop us not from completing this work? What are the possible risks? So when you evaluate, especially when you're breaking story down, you always need to look at possible risks and management issues, right? And the way you manage this is by effectively documenting this. And with expected challenges, when you foresee that you're going to have expected challenges, what happens is that you create more buffer. You create more buffer to handle that. In an agile Scrum environment, you're just hired, and there's no definition of ready for the team. Could you help introduce and how can this be handled? All right, definition of ready simply means that what do we need to see in order for a team member to start working on a story. And for the definition of ready, number one, the story must have detailed description, must have acceptance criteria, must be rightly estimated, and someone must be assigned to work on that story. So those are the components that help a story to become ready. Then when it's ready, we pull it to the backlog, and then which means someone has committed to work on that story. Now, I had a scenario I had to address where a team was facing so much problem with their velocity. And when I spoke with the Scrum Master, they pull story to the Spring backlog without people committing. So they say, oh, if you pick a story, you complete, come back and pick another one. And that was the major issue why they were having problems. And unfortunately, their manager said that was not a problem, that the Scrum Master should find out what the problem is. And he's telling them this is the problem. I said, no, go and figure out something else. I don't think this one is the problem. So how do you balance the need of business with the need of the team? And what strategy do you use to prioritize competing demand and ensure that your team is focusing on delivering? In a case where you have business need different from team need, that's already a breakage and a tension you need to fix. One of your goals as a Scrum Master is not just to help your team become performant, but to help management align with the expectation of the team. All of us are working, delivering business value. Now, this difference only comes when the management is trying to put pressure on the team to deliver out of scope or to do unexpected. And you are the Scrum Master. For you to balance this, you need to have a clear understanding and expectation of what the product roadmap is, of what the release planning is. So that becomes your tool to create this balance and ensure that everyone is aligned towards this goal. What is the role of UTA lead? When you look at UTA's, user acceptance testing, they try to test, let's say we've built a payment gateway to allow people logging in from on security network to pay, to make payment in a bank. Now, the user acceptance lead is going to evaluate if the user, let's say we're building this solution for Bank of America, is going to evaluate if Bank of America will accept the final product that the team built. So it's just the person leading. It's just like you can have a team lead, right? You can have the tech lead. Those are just their rules. All right. So what steps do you take to foster innovations and experimentation within your team, and how do you balance this with a need for stability and consistency? Fostering innovation and experimentation is a need to put in launch and learn, or put in KTE, knowledge transfer session, where you can just have someone come and speak about a technique they're using. So that's how you're able to foster this. The need to stability and consistency. You can plan this to happen every last Friday of the month or every last Wednesday of the month. That's where you look at stability. Can you give an example of how you implement the continuous integration and continuous deployment pipeline in safe environment? Now, this is built, this is an end-to-end value that's triggered in the value stream. The CI/CD, which is how we enable flow from the level of where a feature entered the program backlog to when it is being delivered. Now, this continuous flow is designed in such a way that at the end of every PI cycle, we are launching another PI, right? And it's also designed in such a way that all the team are aligned and they do demo, like the cadence and alignment. So they start their sprint and finish at the same time so that they can continuously integrate and develop together as a team. But in a nutshell, CI/CD simply ensure that the team is continuously building increment and integrating the increment to the last solution. So there's no breakage along the way. What are the various dimensions of built-in quality? Okay, I'm gonna pass that question and I'll come back to that. This is a typical this is a typical SPC question. There are different dimensions of built-in quality. I can't remember them. It's a pure theoretical question, but if you Google them, you see built-in quality. It's a value in SAFe. There are four main values in SAFe, right? Where you have built-in quality, you have program execution, you have alignment and transparency. But then there are dimensions of built-in quality. But where you look at built-in quality in terms of the environment and the tools you're using, you look at built-in quality in terms of delivery, you look at that. But that's a high-level question. I will not understand why someone will ask you that question in an interview. Yeah, but if you're being asked what are the dimensions, my response would definitely be with built-in quality, we are looking at quality across all the departments, across the tools, across communication, across all the different processes, across the event. We want to ensure that all of them are delivered with quality. Okay. What metrics are used in SAFe? The same metrics used in Scrum. So I saw this question somewhere and someone answered it, which I did not buy to the answer. And he answered that question as portfolio, program, and team matrices, which doesn't make sense to me anyway. But I saw that question somewhere. But when you talk about what metrics I use in SAFe, it's a vague question. Is it at the level of teams? Is it at the level of programs? Is it at the level of portfolio? But as a Scrum Master, if that question comes to you, you work at the essential level, which is at the level of what? Team and a level of program. At the level of team, the metrics that I use is to evaluate your team performance. At the level of programs, the metrics that I use, you definitely want to evaluate the flow. You definitely want to evaluate to measure blockers as well and bottlenecks. Those are the different aspects that you want to use. At the level of program, you use the Kanban, no, what's it called? Cumulative flow diagram. That tells you all the different aspects on how much work we have, what are the lead time, what are the lead time, cycle time, and all of that. With deployment, what role do you take? What are some of the everyday things you do as a Scrum Master to ensure that what you are delivering from development to testing phase until you get to the production, where you have external user to ensure time delivery? And in a typical agile environment, a Scrum Master will not be involved in every phase. Now, practically, deployment is a work of the technical team. Your role as a Scrum Master is just to ensure that the work has been deployed. And you do this by communication. You don't do this by going into the environment, because if you really want to ensure that it's been done, out of communication and out of facilitation, it means that you need to have access to what? The whole environment. You need to have access to the host environment.
I hope you don't mind that I'm wearing my hat. It's chilly, that's why.
All right, we need to have access to the host environment. And when we have access to the host environment, we can be able to test to see if it has been done completely. But as a Scrum Master, it's about facilitation. Now, you need to understand the different phase that when a team finished developing a product at the end of the sprint, is deploy, right? It's deployed to production. Now, production is the environment where it mimics the client environment. So when a Scrum team finish building a product, it doesn't send it directly to the client. It sends it to an environment that is similar to the client environment. And that's in the environment where the user acceptance testing did now happen to see if it's working as the client will accept it. It's from the production environment that now is being released. And also testing also happen in all of these different phases. So your role is just to make sure by double checking with communication that everything has been deployed and okay. And for those who work in a safe environment, with releases, it's handled by the technical team, but the Scrum Master definitely stay up with their team. Most of the releases are done by midnight in the safe environment. You just need to be there and just check they're doing their work and like, okay, everything was successful. And then you mark everything was successful, but you don't even know what is going on behind the team. Okay, is it normal to talk to your developer off the clock outside of the no, 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 don't do that. Use working windows. What's the best thing that has come out of a retro? What something that your team needed to fix that did not go well? The most profound one, how was it identified and fixed, and how it go after that? Now, when they start asking you all of these questions with different components, your best approach would be to use a case study. You is not to answer one after another. For instance, I can say, oh, I just remember one of my last retrospective, and the team velocity actually went down, which was unexpected because they were a performing team. And we had to figure out what actually went wrong. We realized that one of the team member who actually was in charge and working in some of the story, they were going through a very tough time. So that actually really affected their performance. But then as a team, since for several consecutive sprints, they have been on top of their performance. We just had to come in and give them our support. And everybody was just like, oh, you know what? We got this after he shared what was going on. That was really something I saw really stood out. And we work as a team. Everybody was empathetic. And it really, really kind of touched my heart. And we're able, just from that encouragement, we're able to fix the problem in the next sprint. You realize when you pick a case study, it cut across every bit of part of that question. Can CI/CD project go with any domain, i.e. retails, herd? It's not a project. CI/CD is a process. It just means that now Scrum is about building in increment. If we build in increment, it means we need to integrate one increment with the other. And we deploy and release based on demand. So for every Scrum project, you need to have CI/CD. Okay, and the last question says that nobody should ask another question again. This is the last question. The last question says that what do you see as your biggest success with your team? Okay, this is a very good question. I would say that basically for me, I always see my team to be successful when there is effective collaboration and communication. If that happens, their performance, then definitely ready to step away and just mentor them because I know that they can always fix everything they need to fix. So that's the biggest success a team can. Yeah. Right. So you agree with me that when you can effectively communicate and collaborate, you don't need to stress yourself. Now you start shouting when you need to repeat yourself 5 times for something to happen. And when others don't care about what you're going through, right? So uh And then you're asking the last question. I said that was the last question. How do you explain to stakeholder why a user story wasn't completed? You need to talk to your team members and understand why it wasn't completed. You need to find out the reason why it wasn't completed, and you need to be able to back up that reason with a stakeholder. If it wasn't completed simply because your team did not estimate well or so, you probably need to find a good reason to defend yourself in front of the stakeholder. If it wasn't completed because of some bottlenecks that are happening, you find a reason to communicate. So there's no better way to communicate. It has to be the reasons why it's not happening. If you are the impediment, which means that it's because you did not follow up well, then you are the impediment. There's no better way to communicate that, right? So you need to understand the reason. You don't guess the reason. Yeah, and and you don't just explain why. You need to also find out a way forward, especially when it's a challenge that needs to be completed. All right, so that was it for our open house for today. How many questions did we answer? Was someone noting them down? Well, I guess we answered quite a lot of questions. I'm gonna make them available immediately after this, and you can take some time and go through that. Now I'm gonna give room for any follow-up question. 5 minutes, and we're done. So simply put up your hand, and then we are going to keep your question very short. Don't ask a question which is a whole sentence, please, which is a whole explanation. Keep it short and precise. Yes, yes, right. Go ahead, Miss Burr, and then Brainford.
Good evening, everybody. Doug, please, I just to throw, I think the same question that you didn't answer that you were asking me to rephrase. Actually, I got the question from the 150 questions from the book, but I didn't understand it. That's why I asked. And that is how the question was. Can you describe the 4 tiers hierarchy of artifacts that describe functional system behavior? So I didn't understand it at all.
What was the response?
Yeah, it says SAFe defined as artifact hierarchy of epic capabilities, features, and stories.
Oh,
and then it goes along to explain all of that.
okay. Yeah, so it's just a complex explanation. Now, stories, futures, capability, and epics, right? Okay. Now, the concept of artifact, the way I understand it, is simply a measure. A measure. That's why even your bend down chart and your velocity chart are all artifact, although they select some certain. So sometimes that gives me more clarity. In a safe environment, at the level of portfolio, the artifacts there are epics. At the level of last solution, the artifact there are capabilities. At the level of program, we have futures. At the level of teams, we have stories. So yes, that's what it means. All right, Brentford.
Hi everyone. Yes, Doc. Just a quick question, please. Can you please elaborate on the calculation of capacity? Like, how do you calculate capacity when let's say your team is made of seven, you have 17 members. That's
Okay, when you say you have 70 members, what's the composition?
That's 3 developers, 2 testers, and 1 product, and a product owner and a scrum master, actually.
So you have 5 knowledge workers. Those are people that are doing the work. So you calculate the capacity based on the 5 people. Capacity simply means that are they working full-time for your team? And so you can have 5 developers with full-time full capacity for your team. So if you are already an existing team, your average velocity will be equal to your capacity, would be equal to a guideline for your capacity, right? If you are not yet a team that is existing, there is a standard way to calculate capacity, which is the number of story points each team member is capable of completing within a sprint. And some environment, they go with 6. Some environment, they go with 8. So the capacity for a sprint, the capacity for a team is going to be the number of people available for a team. But then the capacity for a sprint will now be reflected by the work they can complete during that sprint. Does that make sense?
Yes, Doug, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, so if you have 5 team members, let's say that if their first sprint is going to be 5 times 8, 40 story points they expect to complete. Right. Let's say that after about 5 sprints, you realize that the team is capable of completing 50 story points every sprint, then that becomes, they still have a full-time capacity, but you realize that what? Their velocity increases. So capacity doesn't really change. What fluctuates is velocity, right? So if I have 5 full-time developer, there are 5 full-time. It doesn't change except a member add. But what fluctuates is the velocity. So there's a close tie between velocity and capacity. But capacity simply says that what is the team capable of doing? The team is capable of completing 40 story points, which is the standard. But then the team can complete sometimes 56, sometimes 30, sometimes 36. And then we have an average, which gives us what should be the guideline. So every sprint can have an independent capacity, which means that, although we have 5 team members, one person is taking 1 week off. So that fluctuates the amount of work that we should take. Catherine.
Thank you, Doctor. So in that specific example, it's a follow-up question. If you have 3 developers, will your capacity be based on 5? Because 2 of the tech workers, knowledge workers are testers and not developers. So will your capacity be based on 3 or 5?
The tester, are they working? Yes, we don't calculate the capacities for PO and product owner because they are not working.
Yes.
They're not building the product, but for testers and the tester are part of the people building the solution. So we need to estimate their capacity.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. iPhone.
Doug, please, I have a follow-up question for this capacity question, if
Yes.
I may go.
Go ahead.
So if a developer is available for half of the day, how do you calculate the capacity for that day? I really actually had that today. It was confusing for me. That's why I need clarification on that.
If they're available for half of the day, just ask them what they can do. Let them just do what they can do. You don't calculate half of a day.
Okay.
Yeah. So in practice, it has to be very flexible. It's not like, just like, what do you think you can do for the time that you're available? All right. Choma, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Coach. Doctor, sorry. Good evening to everyone. My question is also a little bit in line with capacity, but a little bit different. I was watching this video and it's like a scenario in an environment of safe. And I want to relate it in case, I get a job and it happens to me that way. Okay. This is a safe environment, and one of the Scrum masters in one of the team wanted to like, will I say, borrow a team member to help complete a job that is already ongoing so they can actually meet up with time. But the team member in that other team is refusing. So in this case, how can you handle it as a Scrum Master? Do you email this DevOps team member to ask them if they are ready to commit in the other team and allow them go? Because you as a Scrum Master, you know that you don't want to leave anyone in your team, or you don't want anyone to leave in your team to go, to actually shorten the capacity down. So would you ask them first, or just tell this other Scrum Master that has requested that they are not available to help that team?
You talk with them if they have capacity to help. If they say, yes, I can help, then you're working as a team. It should be collaboration. If you know that you're working on a tight deadline on the future, you can actually tell the other Scrum Master, I would like to help, but we have a deadline to deliver this. But first of all, it's communication with the DevOps engineer. And then you're communicating with them with the awareness of their workload. So the first thing you want to do is to check what they have on their board. And then you can say, okay, hey, hello, James, I see you have a whole lot on your board. And Team Nexus needed your help. I already know that you have a whole lot. I just want to make sure that I'm in alignment with you. I wouldn't tell them you're not available for this sprint, given that X, Y, Z. Is that okay?
Yeah, okay.
If they say, oh, okay, it's okay, I think I can see step in and help, I can have some help, then good, you can communicate.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
All right, everybody. Have a good evening. I'll see you on the other side.